We have a lot to talk about in today's Resume Sage critique video. We're going to be critiquing Regina's resume, and I'm going to show you how to take a good resume and make it even better. Welcome back to another Resume Sage critique video. I'm David Pinkley. Many of you know me as the Resume Sage. Some of you know me as the Career Sage, and still others know me as the Hiring Sage. I do all kinds of different things. I'm an expert on hiring and on getting hired. One of the things I love to do is go online, grab a resume, print it out, shoot a video, and critique the resume so that you can take some tips and techniques back with you so that you can improve your resume. As with all of these videos I do, totally free, the only thing I ask in return is that you engage with the video. If you like what you see, could you comment below? If you have a question or something specific that you want to ask, just put it in the comments below the video. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to my channel. Please, I would love it. Today, we're looking at Regina. She's an IT project manager. She's got, it looks like she's got 10 years of total experience doing project management in a variety of different capacities. If you are not a project manager, you can still get good value out of this, this critique session, because many of the things that I'm going to point out are universal across all kinds of different specializations and disciplines. But if you are an IT project manager, you definitely want to maybe grab a pen and take some notes, because I've got a lot to say about Regina's resume. So again, she's got a two-page resume. Let's take a look at what she looks like. Two-page resume. As always, this is a real resume with real content in it. It has been de-identified. I've changed the name. This Regina is obviously not her real name. I've removed her contact information. I've changed all of her employers, the names of her employers. I've changed the dates enough so that it disguises the date ranges, and I've also changed where she went to school and her graduation year. So truly, no one's going to recognize this resume except maybe possibly Gina. But it is a real resume, and this is what I want to focus on. So she's got a two-page resume. You can see it's pretty clean. She's got, you know, a pretty good sort of white space around both of these slices of paper. It's I wouldn't say it's super inviting to the eye, because it is kind of a small-ish font. There's not a lot of extra white space. It is a little bit dense. I've seen a lot worse, believe me, but you know, I would say it's an above-average sort of format and structure. She's done a nice job getting a lot of information into two pieces of paper. Let's talk a little bit about the format, or excuse me, the structure of her resume. She's got a career objective at the top, followed by this professional profile section. She's got a skills section in addition to that. Her experience section starts here, just kind of toward the bottom of page 1, and that experience section, of course, goes all the way through page 2, and then at the bottom of page 2 is her education. So the first thing that I'll observe about this resume is she uses this much space, that much space, before we even get to her education, or excuse me, her experience. She's got all of this as part of the summary. She chunks it out in three different sections: objective, professional profile, and skills. But you don't get to actually her first experience until you get really, you know, 3/4, 2/3 of the way down on page 1. Why does this matter? I see this on a lot of resumes, Sometimes the summary section, we're trying to say so much, it just gets longer and longer and longer. And what you need to realize from the standpoint of by the way, just as an FYI, yes, I'm a professional resume writer. Yes, I'm also a career coach, but I'm also a headhunter. I'm a recruiter. So I look at these resumes and I critique them both through the lens of a professional resume writer, but also as a headhunter. And so what I want to comment on right now is based on my experience as a recruiter. And what I want to share with you is that a recruiter or a hiring executive or a human resources professional, they really don't have that much time when it comes time for them to look at your resume. And if your summary section is this big, most of it's not going to be seen. Most of it's not going to be read. Sad, but true. You have spent, in this case, Regina, has spent so much time putting together what she thinks is really important at the top of this resume. Unfortunately, it's hardly going to get that much of a glance, because anyone naturally who's looking at a resume and evaluating someone's experience relative to an open position, they want to know where you work. They want to know what your job is. They want to know what your title is. They want to know how long you've been in your current job, right? Have you been in your current job for 8 years, or have you been in your current job for 8 months? Is your title a senior vice president, or a vice president, or a project manager, or director, or project analyst, right? Like, just the basic information of your title, how long you've been in your job, and the kind of company you work for. That is information that I'm trying to get to fast, because this is kind of helping me begin to evaluate your candidacy for a job. And so what's going to happen is I'm going to maybe look at a little bit of this at the top, but once I realize that I've got to read all of this, I'm going to skip it and then go right to what I care about most, which is, where is she working now? What's her title? How long has she been there? And I'm going to flip the paper to page 2, and I'm going to look at that job title, this company, this like range of time that you've been in, and then this one as well. I'm just trying to get a really quick snapshot about your overall career trajectory. How long have you been in jobs? Are you sort of moving upward in terms of trajectory of more and more responsibility or not? And it may be helpful, it may not. It's just overall, forensically, what I'm looking for when I look at a resume at first glance. So, project manager, I'm sure she has incredible skills, but she's over-baked, over-engineered this section, and unfortunately a lot of it's not going to get seen. I've made that point. Another thing that I want to point out here is when she has the skills section, a couple of these bullet points are nicely put together. She says greater than 10 years of experience providing business consulting and project managing software implementations. That's really good. She talks about experience includes IT change management. That's great. She talks about integrating billing software with financial software applications. This is all awesome. This is all really good. It's here in the middle of this summary section. Gosh, I would have loved to have seen that up here at the top. I would have loved to have seen that way up here faster, so I didn't have to chase it all the way down here, because again, I may or may not have found it. Another point I want to make here as it relates to the skills section is she falls into the trappings that a lot of people do. She reverts to some soft skills in this section. She refers to verbal and written communication skills. She refers to being customer focused and having good follow through and time management skills. Again, those are all important skills to be an IT project manager, or just a project manager at all. She is a PMP. She's a project management professional. So I already know that she's got some of those basic skill sets as it relates to managing projects. But the problem is that I'm never going to keyword search on these kinds of skills. These are, I call them soft skills. These are kind of, her opinion of what skill set she's bringing to the table and so forth. But they're not necessarily helping me as a reader, because I'm going to gloss over these and I'm never going to search for them to find this resume in a database. I'm going to search for more hard skills, technical skills that might be appropriate. So I hope that makes sense. Another thing that she's done well, speaking of hard skills, in this last bullet point, she does refer to in-depth knowledge of various software applications, including Microsoft Office, Great Plains, SharePoint, PeopleSoft, and JD Edwards. I mean, these are great. She's got some really, really good system skills. But once again, it gets buried in this section, which she could have done is at the bottom. She could have taken that bullet point and really created at the bottom a systems section and just had a bullet point. That very bullet point could have been cut and paste and just simply put at the bottom. You might go, well, I don't want to put it at the bottom because I don't think they're going to be seeing it. I want to put it at the top so they'll see it. But I just explained that they're not going to see it here because they want to jump down to find out where you work. In fact, what I would argue is that there's a greater chance they're going to see it at the bottom of your resume. Why? Because anyone, to be able to figure out what education you have, where you went to school, what degree you have, what certifications you have, which are appropriate for a project management professional, they're going to go down to the bottom of page 2 just to see where you went to school, to see what degree you have, to see that you have your PMP. And while they're there, it's only a glance away to pick up that proposed last bullet point that I'm suggesting with the systems in it, right? So her intentions were good, but by reality and practice, this doesn't work, okay? Be careful about building a summary section that's way too big. Let's see what else we have here. Now, in the actual content of her jobs, here and on page 2, again, I think she's done a decent job of outlining the kind of work she does. It does, though, seem a little bit at times like a cut and paste of a job description, which I'm always sort of recommending you don't do, because the person who wrote the job description didn't want to write that document any more than Regina wants to write her document, her resume. And so if you're cutting and pasting information that sucks from the job description, you're just basically downgrading your own resume. The thing that Regina, the trap that she falls into, like a lot of project managers and resumes that I've seen accordingly, is she doesn't give the greater context of why the projects she's worked on and managed are important. Sometimes project managers get so buried in the weeds, so technical, so focused on the minutia and the granularity of getting all the little tiny things done that they miss the big picture. They miss the larger, commercial reason for why that project was important to start with. I don't see any of that kind of content in Regina's resume. And maybe that's important for the person who's going to look at this resume and hire her. Maybe it's not important. It's hard to know. But I think what is important is that you're doing your best to demonstrate that you can see the forest from the trees, right? You can see the big picture from the minute picture. That is something that most project managers fall into, and as a headhunter, as a career coach, as a resume writer, I'm strongly advising that you connect the dots to the bigger picture. One other thing I want to mention, won't take too much time, but she does have a number of bullet points where she writes in the first person. This is the English grammar. She uses the word I a lot. For instance, the first bullet point in this particular job at the top of page 2, she says, I was hired as part of the risk advisory services team where I reported to the director of audit. I was one of 8 people in the Columbus office. So those are proper sentences. She's using a subject of I. The information that she's writing here is really helpful. It's really good context. The problem is that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I can see. And when I go to page 1, there's a couple of other instances. There's at least 2 more. There's 7 references to I. And, in general, you kind of want to avoid using I and me and my because you want to be seen as a team player and you don't necessarily want to come across as it's all about me. Yes, the resume is all about you. Yes, everything that you put in here is about you. But you don't have to use the word I to say it I'm not saying it is for me, but there are some hiring executives, some hiring managers, certainly some human resources professionals and recruiters who are really sensitive to the usage of the word I, and because it connotes, suggests, it's implied that maybe you're not a team player. Whether that's fair, whether it's not fair, just be aware of it. Strongly recommend not using the word I. As a professional resume writer, there are some cases here and there, rare, but nonetheless I have bent that rule, and I have used the first person I in resumes that I write. But there are certain reasons for why I'm doing it, and I'm doing it very sparingly, probably never more than once in a resume. If I use the word at all, it's on a resume, it's only once in a resume, okay? So I hope that helps. Overall, I've got a really hard grading scale. Overall, this is a tough one because it looks good. And I can tell she spent a lot of time putting this together. You know, I think I would give this a strong B. I'm not sure if it's a full B plus because that's a pretty good grade for me. I think what she can do, aside from shrinking the summary, she could actually shrink maybe some of the older experiences because this is, 10 years old and she's using just as much space as something that's more recent. So, there are some other things that she can do on this resume to really improve it. I think with this instruction, certainly she should be able to get this to like a B minus, or excuse me, an A minus, or maybe even an A. But on a whole, I would give this a strong B. Not a bad grade for me. And just how hard I am on resumes, as you can tell. If you have a question, comment below. If you want me to address something specific about what I've said here, or if you're a project manager and you want me to actually do a private critique of one of your resumes, of your resume, send me a note. Happy to respond. And don't forget to subscribe to Jet Fuel for Your Career. I'm David Pinkley. We'll see you soon.